a mysterious part 3 out of the middle of nowhere. Oh my goodness, we had a very short part 2. It was only about 10 minutes long because of the fact that for some reason in the last 7 or 8 dailies there has been a period of exactly 4,000 frames time that just stops. I think there's some sort of weird server reset that's happening around the time in the middle of my daily every time. I don't know why, but that's okay. We're going to go into part 3 that will also be a little short, so that way we can do a part 4 after that. What we were talking about before is that as I wait for the plane to pass overhead, everything trying to interrupt the daily. In the first game that we looked at in part number 1, we saw this build from Progenitus being tested on the ladder. And what ended up happening was Progenitus was up against an air player, and he did the intuitive response, which is to build anti-air. It's very, very easy. He's not going to build a Void Ray and then not attack with the Void Ray. That's actually just terrible. And if he builds the Void Ray and doesn't attack with it, you're in good shape even if you do build a lot of Queens and Spores. In this case, in this game, we end up with this weird mix of things where we do what feels intuitive at the time but is actually fear-driven. Where Progenitus never really made a whole bunch of Zerglings before. He never really did that in any of his games. He did this because he was worried of some kind of attack coming, but keep in mind, as we come over here, again, there's this invisible check out opponent at the end of everything. If your opponent is doing some sort of big attack, that is when suddenly you stop making drones and build units. So in other words, you say something like, if he's getting ready to attack, I'm actually going to drop everything and build units. And then afterwards, return right back to droning, return right back to doing this, return back to doing these sorts of things without a problem. What we don't want to get into the habit of is doing this sort of thing where we build a bunch of units that we're not sure if we're going to use or not, because we run into this issue. Here's our Roach Warren and Evo Chamber also going down. Layer also being produced, Macro Hatch being produced. A big signal, excuse me, an extremely big signal that every player should rely on a lot is, when do we need to make units? Or actually I should say, when does drop everything and make units occur? This generally occurs if you see your opponent not favoring expanding so much. If you're at like 7:30 or 8 minutes and your opponent just hasn't expanded, stop with the huge long-term plan of getting all the drones up and just make a ton of units right then and there. This is kind of what we end up seeing in this game, where Progenitus builds these Zerglings, it kind of delays his build a little bit, and then he moves forward and sees this big attack coming, starts spamming out a ton of roaches. We actually see the Queens getting pretty dang high also on the energy count. And when this attack ends up coming in, it catches Progenitus a little bit off guard. And it's times like these where you can say, oh, he delayed his expansion. If he delays his expansions, then maybe instead of waiting for here to build a whole bunch of units, maybe right here in step 3, we see he's late on Expo. I don't know why that speedling is chasing me. We see he's late on Expo, drop everything, and make some units. And then, anytime we drop everything, make some drones after it. We just back that up nice and good. But remember, what happened in part 1? Progenitus seemed to get thrown off a good chunk. Oh hell, even a Warpin in the main, that's pretty brutal. We saw Progenitus seem to get thrown off a good chunk, but then, because he had such a solid foundation and was so good at this roach massing, he was able to hold everything off and recover just fine. In this game, Progenitus loses to this attack, but if this attack were to fail, imagine this attack being barely defended. Back home, oops, If we imagine this attack being barely defended, back home, we see Echizen doesn't have anything. He doesn't have a forge for upgrade. He doesn't have a Twilight Council. He has only 41 probes. We would be way ahead. And this is the sort of comfort that we want to start building up. To show one last game where we see again, we're going to watch Progenitus get thrown off pretty hard by some weird stuff. This is why our core foundation is so important. So we're going to come back in, GTS. Sens Asian. Do you get it? GTP sensation. Alright, great. Moving right along. Okay, again, Progenitus does his little expand dealio. He throws down a very early third. Does he? Yep, there he does. Throws down a very early third. In a little bit more of a defensible position. Doesn't really worry too much about that other stuff. We see Sensation also doing an early expand. Progenitus throws down these 2 extractors. Because Progenitus is platinum, really, I think a master or grandmaster level player would have some incredible consistency. We've been seeing Progenitus get his Evo and Roach Warren down as early as 730. It's important to have benchmarks with yourself. I don't mean with the pro, I mean with yourself. Here's the 4th gas coming down. If we come back, remember, we were supposed to have 3 gas, then we're supposed to go Evo, Roach, and then 4th gas. We're getting our Roach Warren and Evo Chamber at 8:30. We saw Progenitus get it as early as 7:30. And it's important to have that sort of mimicking, but still, we have the layer go down, we have the macro hatch go down, we have this nice structure. Our opponent is actually Dark Templar rushing us. Where's the Dark Shrine? There it is. It's actually done now. And Progenitus is going to get completely thrown out of whack. Watch this. This is hilarious. I don't know if any of you have ever seen this build. Here it comes. Here it comes. Moving right on in. Yeah, anyone ever seen this build? The 4 Dark Templar drop plus 5 DT warping. Holy crap, does this end up being really bad. We get warped in, we have a lot of stuff messed with, our queen gets killed off. Where's the target fire on that? I mean, it doesn't really go as well as it could have. But we kind of panic and go, holy crap, we gotta build overseers. We lose a queen here. This is a weird spot to be in, but remember, despite the failure of that attack, I mean, this is kind of sick, that even with a big Dark Templar drop freaking us out, killing stuff off, maybe even getting to kill off a bunch of roaches, maybe killing off this hatch, Progenitus is so ridiculously far ahead in terms of units. I mean, this is insanely far ahead. He's basically maxed at 12 minutes. The only reason he didn't get maxed earlier is because he was supply blocked. And just crushes. Just murders. It's like not even close. It's not close in the slightest. And this is what happens when you just do some work on a build order that has a clear plan start to finish. You get thrown off by DTs, holy crap, I have to build a bunch of overseers, I have to make some emergency spine spore at this expansion, I gotta rebuild queens. But holy crap, the macro is honestly so easy, or the build is so good that as long as you're still macroing, wins come easily. For any of you who will be no doubt experimenting a lot with build orders in the coming days, if you start to get your build order down really nicely, you will feel yourself winning with just tons of stuff. You will feel yourself crushing with huge armies. You're not going to be winning by getting the right thing up, you know, like, oh, he's going for Templar tech. Well, I think that Zergling Infestor is the best thing against that, which it totally isn't, but let's say that that's what you thought, right? Or, oh my gosh, he's going a lot of Zealots. I need to get up a Spire really fast. You don't win by surprising him in a lot of circumstances. You win like this, where, oh, he did an attack, but it didn't work very well, so I was maxed before he could get a triple-digit food count. That is how things really end up working. And then when you start to get to master level and things start to get refined quite a bit more, then you'll start doing things like maybe eking things a few seconds forward, maybe doing some clever transitions to mutas or something like that. But by and large, It's just crushing people with huge amounts of macro. I mean, Liquid Ret plays this way. Crushes people really, really nicely and easily with it. You know what? Since I feel bad that we crashed, I do want to look at one last game from this replay pack. It's a short one on Ohana. Roaches are not actually that great of a unit in general, but when you can get that many roaches that fast, that is really good. So Pet Ninja actually goes for this very early gateway play. Progenitus is just going to be doing his usual sort of thing. You see an ultra fast, it looks like Chrono Boost going down on the Warp Gate. It's a 4 gate. And we see that Progenitus scouted no expansion. This is one of these important things where you have to be able, at this point in time, where, okay, pool 2 hatch, and then you see here, oh my god, this guy is doing an attack. Holy attack. No expo. When this happens, abandon this, abandon this, abandon this, and do whatever it takes to stay alive. For instance, Roach Warren immediately. Many Lings. Hell, maybe Spine 1 or 2, something like this. When you see no expansion, holy crap, get ready to do this sort of thing. And once you hold it off, cool. Then 2 gas. Make sure that phase is done, and then another gas. And then when you get to phase 4, yeah, your Roach Warren might not be here because you built it a little bit earlier. You built it right in here. But you just catch back up in the exact same order. In this circumstance, because we're following our build a little bit too closely, this is always a really awkward spot to be in. Remember, the timing of whenever you need to make a lot of units, or more importantly, the timing of when you need to deviate hard from your build is largely based on the expansion. Holy crap, he doesn't have an expansion up. So, in part number 3, we're going to finish by looking at a couple of pitfalls to avoid when you're doing these building grouping sort of exercises. And of course, how to adjust when we start feeling a couple of holes in our build. And of course, we don't want to fall into the tragic situation that our friend Nildowen fell into, where things are just not going well with our build order. Things are not going well at all. We'll come back to that after this break. Woo!